the concept of the metaverse and virtual economies really opens up so many new opportunities for people for things like employment, exactly what you're describing. It also creates a sandbox for people to become innovative and industrious entrepreneurs and creators and content contributors in a way that's never been accessible to them before.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Profit to the People, the official podcast of Republic, where we believe you have the power to invest in the future you believe in. I'm your host, Lisa Carmen Wang, head of brand at Republic, and I'll be taking you behind the scenes to meet the team, founders, and investors in our community who share their insights on the future of investing and how they're bringing profit back to the people. To learn how you can invest, head over to republic.co and follow us on all socials at Join Republic and at Lisa Carmen Wang. Today, I'm here with Michael Wagner, the co-founder and CEO of Star Atlas, a grand strategy game of space exploration, territorial conquest, and political domination built on Solana. Star Atlas is at the intersection of some extremely exciting emerging technologies, and today we'll be talking about how they are paving the road for the new virtual economy. Michael, welcome to Profit to the People.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here. And we're obviously big fans of Republic and Republic Crypto. So great to be talking with you. And just so coincidental that you have the company motto and podcast related to profit to the people. And our internal model is very much power to the people. So it should be a great show.
Amazing. So I'm really excited to dive into some of the cool technologies you are bringing together at Star Atlas, everything from the metaverse to NFTs and to blockchain. And so I just want to talk about how you are taking those emerging technologies and how you're using that to create this big vision for Star Atlas in creating the future of the virtual economy.
So, what I'd really start with is how we wanted to differentiate ourselves across this nascent yet growing blockchain gaming ecosystem. And so the foundation and conceptualization phase of Star Atlas was in mid 2020. And so I've been in the space for a long time, analyzing all of the trends, really analyzing what has been popular. And, it was pretty obvious that DeFi was a major tool set that was being delivered to the user base that had real utility, real functionality, and real value for people participating in that. And so we were looking at DeFi, we were looking at growth around non-fungible tokens, NFTs, which were predominantly oriented towards collectible digital art, which has its own form of utility, but also what was going on again in the blockchain gaming space. And so for us, what we identified was a real opportunity to create a product that would really elevate the intersection of all of those items. And so, for us, developing out Star Atlas started with this concept of building a AAA quality game using the latest game engine technology that is Unreal Engine 5. And that is what we're deploying to build the game. But, first, most importantly for us was that we could deliver a very entertaining and engaging gaming experience for the mainstream audience. Right. So not necessarily the crypto enthusiasts, although, that's an important demographic, but not just the crypto enthusiasts, not just the blockchain gamers, not just the people that are interested in play to earn, but people that actually like to play games on a daily basis. And so we started with that, but we realized the potential of enhancing that through financial incentives available through blockchain. And so in our case, it's really across three different categories, and that includes the non-fungible tokens for all of the assets that players own. In our game, it's things like ships, virtual land, components, buildings, structures, crew members. Virtually everything that you see in the digital universe is something that a player can own and possess. And this is transformative because the traditional gaming model is what I like to describe as kind of a rental-based system or transactional system. You're paying for access to the title, and even if you're purchasing items or customizations within that title, they're locked in the game environment. And so if you decide to stop playing at some point in the future, you essentially lose any of the value that you created. Now, that's not to diminish the entertainment that you get from it, but there's no way to extract value back out at the end of that experience. What we do is actually incorporate an ownership model. wherein not only do you get to engage in that entertaining experience, but everything that you own is truly owned by you and your digital currency wallet. Further, deploying those assets in the game allows you to earn income or earn revenue by operating some form of business. And that could be in-game flight, or it could be land ownership and mining or farming, and it can also be space station ownership. But ultimately, at the end of the experience, if a player determines that they don't want to be engaged in Star Atlas in the future, they can sell those. They can turn around and sell those. So it's very much analogous to something like renting a property versus owning a property, and your ability to recapture value at some point in the future. Then the last segment is really what we're doing with integrating DeFi tools into the game itself. So as players are earning income, and presumably there will be some excess income that could be considered savings, they're actually able to take that savings and allocate it to decentralized finance protocols that allow them to earn a substantially higher yield on that undeployed or otherwise undeployed capital than they would by trying to deposit it in, say, traditional bank account, checking or savings account, where you're earning virtually nothing. The opportunity in DeFi is anywhere from something like 20% by participating in a liquidity pool or automated market making, upwards of 300, 400, or 1,000% APY on an annual basis. And so we see it as an incredible tool set to provide to our user base. And we think it's really going to increase the value proposition for our users.
That's really cool. You're literally creating an entire economy within this metaverse where people can earn money, they can buy property, they can do all these different things. And essentially, can they hire people? Can they, can they actually really live in here and create a sustainable income?
They can. And so that's a very expansive and I wouldn't say loaded question, but it's, it opens a Pandora's box, because it's a very accurate assessment in that while what we're initially building is a gaming experience, right, that people can enjoy participating in, it's really just the tip of the spear, because longer term, the concept of the metaverse and virtual economies really opens up so many new opportunities for people for things like employment, exactly what you're describing. It also creates a sandbox for people to become innovative and industrious entrepreneurs and creators and content contributors in a way that's never been accessible to them before. Again, going back to the gaming experience, that's the way that we attract the initial users. And that's also an experience that we provide as a developer that people can participate in. But it's just as likely in the future that people use Star Atlas not for space exploration and territory control, but for social experience. Being able to go to concerts with friends or music festivals or art galleries or museums or anything that anybody, would desire to create. They have the opportunity to create this business within the metaverse and sell that experience to other people. And it is critically important for us in our economic design that we actually create a system an economic system that is circular in nature and not extractive in nature. And so one of the things that, I think is potentially problematic and a concern for blockchain gaming is if the entire economy is built on a subsidy, which is the emission of cryptocurrency over time to actually pay the players to play, it simply is not sustainable. At some point, that supply needs to be exhausted, or it just creates hyperinflation over the long term. And so the model that we're deploying is one that allows for individuals to be creative, as I said, and actually contribute value back into the economy. The simple fact that they're developing businesses in the economy means that there are additional reasons for users to join and interact with the space. And in doing so, they're able to create their own monetary and monetization strategy around how they can extract value from other players. So long-term objective is very much focused on what experiences can the global population bring to Star Atlas, and through our decentralization model and on-chain governance, how can we enable people to create this experience for others?
And can you talk a little bit about just the tokens and how you've designed them and why you've designed them the way you have?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a 2-token ecosystem within Star Atlas. And the first is called Atlas, and that is our transactional currency. It's a unit of exchange, if you will. So everything within the Star Atlas universe, at least at present time, is denominated in Atlas. So if you're earning revenue, earning income through various forms of gameplay, all of that revenue is received in Atlas currency. However, it is also functioning very much like, real life. And so operations have expenses, whether that's refueling a ship or repairing a ship. You can also reinvest back into your assets to increase how powerful they are. So kind of reinvesting into your future, that is denominated in Atlas. Also consumables and land value tax and things like this. Virtually every expense is also denominated in Atlas. So that's the primary use case and utility of Atlas, is that it's income and operating expenses. Separately, we have a token called Polis, which is a governance token. And so with Polis, it gets pretty deep, but effectively, it allows stakeholders and holders of this token to influence in the long term the evolution and design of Star Atlas itself. What this means is that individual owners would be able to submit proposals and vote on systems that change the way that we build the game. So feature releases, asset release schedules, and even items related to the economy itself. Inflation schedules in the game could be impacted. Taxation schedules could be impacted by Polis. Now that's external. Within the game, there's also this political strategy component. And so we have 3 levels of hierarchy within the internal DAO structure, decentralized autonomous organization structure, that starts with the factions, which there's 3 in Star Atlas. And players have the opportunity to choose which faction they want to join. And then you're essentially trying to support that, call it a subset of the overall economy, and expand the borders and expand the reach and increase the power of that faction. That goes down to a regional level and a regional DAO that controls economic elements related to things like solar systems or individual planets or local city-states. And then ultimately, where we see a lot of utility is how the kind of the fundamental user base that's going to be interacting with Star Atlas, which is guilds. As in many MMOs, the guild system, which we call decentralized autonomous corporations, allow the individual player groups to collectively manage a treasury of assets. And the earnings of the entire guild can be managed through this political system that we are implementing. And so they can determine if they want to invest in new land or new ships or certain career paths, or if they want to engage in combat and go out and try to expand their own local border. Through these 2 systems, which really have independent functions, we're really able to isolate the economy. And what we've done as a company is really divide the value exchange, I suppose, between how we as a company monetize our own activities, which is predominantly through asset sales, initially, in-game asset sales, and the economy of the metaverse itself. And so all of those Atlas transactions that are taking place and all of the revenue that would otherwise be paid to an NPC, a non-playable character, actually flow directly into the DAO. And then that enables the DAO, the external DAO, to manage those resources and determine how best to distribute those, which could either be distributed out to stakeholders. It could be reinvested back into the game economy to grow the user base. Those tokens could just be outright burned, or any number of additional options that the DAO itself determines they think is in the best interest of the long-term sustainability of Star Atlas.
Very cool. I mean, I what I find fascinating is the implications of the political strategy. And I think I just want to take a step back, because I know that some people who are listening might be new to the whole concept of metaverse completely. And so if we just kind of step back and talk a little bit about the metaverse itself, and how it's bridging this line between physical and digital reality. I'd love to hear, just in your own words, how you see the metaverse, and then how some of the things that you're doing within Star Atlas could have real world implications.
It's such a difficult topic to comment on, and it's also very buzzworthy right now. So I just want to note that, but there just isn't a clear definition of what the metaverse will become or what it is today. My personal opinion is that it's really the transformation of the web itself. It's kind of the next evolution of the internet. And major component of that is that it's this alternative reality, digital existence that a human could potentially persist within. And while we're not trying to create, Ready Player One and have this dystopian future, it does create a tremendous amount of opportunities for people all around the world to improve their personal financial situation. So when I say that it is kind of the future of the web, I think about things like governance, right? Like implementation of politics across an ecosystem. I think about the underlying economics, again, of how that radically changes the way that people are able to earn income, even things like shopping experiences and other social experiences. So, imagine in the future that Amazon.com is no longer relevant because there's less incentive or less interest in shopping in a two-dimensional interface. When you can walk into a Nike store inside the metaverse, you can view your shoes in virtual reality. You even get to manipulate them, and maybe with haptic suits, which essentially give you the sense of physical interaction based on the hardware that you're actually wearing. So you can actually physically feel your shoes, see your shoes, pick out a pair of shoes, and then order those, and they can be delivered to your physical residence. And at the same time, because it's in the metaverse, they can run a promotion where you also get the NFT asset associated with that pair of shoes, and you can wear them in reality, and your avatar inside the metaverse can wear them. And you could also create whole new social media platforms within the metaverse itself. And so I just think that virtually everything that we experience in Web 2.0 today, online through browsers, is going to be replicated inside the metaverse, and it becomes more than just a game. It becomes another way to live and another way to persist.
So how does someone new to Star Atlas, how do they get involved?
So the first stop is definitely the website, which is in and of itself an immersive experience. So staratlas.com would be my recommendation. We have a number of materials on there that are informative. So we have a white paper that describes the game and the gameplay mechanics and career paths. We also have an economic document that really describes how the game economy will work, how the token economy will work, and how utility or value is driven to each of those components within the game. Also on the website, I just want to mention, we released a cinematic teaser trailer. We worked with Hydra Studios on this. It was months in the making. This is just a part one, but the release of that was, pretty sure we released that on the 24th. And the purpose there is to give people some insight as to what this future world will look like. So I'll just kind of reference back to Unreal Engine 5, and there's some great demos out there on the internet, but with Unreal Engine 5, we're going to be able to deliver a hyper-realistic cinematic quality experience in real time for all of the players. So, our goal is to create an environment where it's almost indiscernible from reality, from, meat space, from physical reality. And so just very exciting. I would say that the website, though, is a great starting point. We also have a number of social media channels that people can connect up with us at, Discord being one of the more popular, and communities are forming now, and guilds are forming now, and strategies are being planned now. It's almost scary to think about how much planning is going on in the background while we're still pre-release on any Unreal Engine version of the game.
I just actually went on the website a few days ago and was just scrolling through and just getting immersed myself. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I know that you also have a really unique NFT marketplace. Could you tell us about that and what brought that about?
Yeah, that was, so we build on Solana, as you mentioned. That's our blockchain protocol, which we use as essentially as a database of all information and all activity that exists within the game. Closely tied to that is a project called Project Serum, which is a decentralized exchange protocol. Now, when we set out to build our NFT marketplace, we wanted it to be 100% decentralized from the start, which means we don't actually host any of the software that allows players to trade posters with one another, posters or any NFT assets with one another. Now, our debut to the public with an initial product was actually executed through a campaign that we called Rebirth Genesis of Metaverse. And this was a 14-week campaign that ran from April 24th to July 24th. Each week, we released digital art that was created by our team in-house that started to reveal some of the background and lore of the Star Atlas universe itself. Now, each one of these posters was also enhanced by augmented reality. And we partnered with a company named Shape out of Vancouver, as well as audio soundscapes produced by some mainstream musical talent, including the Bassjackers and Blondish, Ricky Desktop. We had Deadmau5 on our final poster. And so while this wasn't the NFT gaming experience or utility-driven NFT experience that we're working on now, it was the first step that allowed us to deploy a marketplace and capture a historic moment in time, which we believe will be historic, just in the sense that, our vision is really to transform the way the world perceives these virtual worlds. And so through this process, we created the marketplace that will ultimately go on and live to be a mini game experience, as we're calling it, which is an in-browser experience that users will initially be exposed to. So when they own assets, they can actually deploy them and start earning off of them right away. This is while we're in development on the full production of the game, which will take several years to complete. Although, quick caveat there, we aren't holding back features until we complete them. We'll actually be rolling out iteratively in modules. So there will be 3D experiences that users can engage in sooner than later. But this core marketplace also becomes the core and the center of the mini game, as well as the full production game. And what's really elegant about it is because it's delivered entirely on chain, it's essentially no central source of potential compromise. In fact, our marketplace interfaces with the Serum protocol, which means that any other developer out there, any other entrepreneur out there that wants to launch a front end for NFT marketplaces immediately can tap into Serum and display our NFTs and also facilitate additional sales or transactions in those NFTs.
Awesome. And can anyone participate in that?
They are completely open markets, which means that not only can we create marketplaces for players to or users to trade, but any individual anywhere in the world can also create their own independent market pair and trade that with any other person from around the world. And these are completely trustless, decentralized systems. So no need for an escrow service and no need for any trust of the other individual. This all happens entirely on chain.
And I'm curious, why were you and your co-founders initially passionate about creating this kind of fully decentralized space for people?
Well, we have all been in the crypto space for a long time. I mean, we certainly drank the Kool-Aid a number of years ago. I personally have been involved since 2013. I made it my full-time career in 2015. This is the second company that I'm launching in the crypto space. So, we just see the potential of human empowerment through these decentralized tools, removing middlemen, removing censorship, and enabling people to participate in a system that otherwise wouldn't be accessible to them. So that was important, understanding kind of the ethos and philosophy of the blockchain ecosystem or crypto ecosystem. But we're also just, to be frank, longtime nerds and gamers. And I've been playing games for as long as I can remember, from Nintendo all the way through beyond high school, and I still play games today. And in fact, through my high school years, was a member of a group that we called the Lanarchists, which was for local area networking. So back in those days, we didn't have broadband internet access, and so so we all brought our computers to somebody's house, networked them together, and then just played games all weekend. But that's fairly consistent across all of the co-founders. We did see an opportunity here to create a product that is going to completely disrupt the way that games get built into the future.
And you've also just had a really cool drop that just happened, the Galactic Asset Offering. What is a Galactic Asset Offering, and what can we expect?
Yeah, so that's our term for essentially the initial sale of NFT assets that will live in the Star Atlas universe. As I said, we've had a very, very busy month. We with the rolling out of previous month in August, we had the rollout of full trade interactivity with our marketplace. So users were not only able to purchase from us, but they could even sell. They can trade with other players. Order book visibility is all there. We launched our game economics and tokenomic white paper. We launched the new website. We launched the cinematic teaser trailer. We closed a token generation event, which was executed across FTX, Radium, and Apollo X. Tokens went live on FTX on September 2nd, and they also went live on Radium on September 2nd. We're rolling out immediately the registration for this minigame process, and accompanied with the registration for the minigame is the GAO, the Galactic Asset Offering, which is the first opportunity for people out there to purchase items like ships and land, building structures, components, crew members, all of these items that we're introducing to the Star Atlas economy. It's the first opportunity to purchase all of these assets. As a result, immediately following the sale, they'll be able to start putting those assets to work within the game. They'll be able to start playing the game, and they'll also be able to start earning from that.
And so will there be continual drops through a period of time?
While every single item is finite in nature, we do fully appreciate that obviously the initial user base is not the final user base. I genuinely believe that this product has the potential to attract the global audience as our target market, which means we can grow this from not only tens of thousands to millions, but even from millions to potentially billions of users. And so naturally, we're going to need to create more assets over time to satisfy some of that demand. What's interesting about our business model is that we actually have to balance that against the intrinsic value of those assets that we've previously released. And we have to be very cognizant not to participate in any activity that would negatively impact our existing user base. And so we use a number of metrics and economic modeling to determine over time, based on user base, based on capital spend, and based on asset destruction within the game, which actually leads to real burning or destruction of NFT assets over time. We look at those factors and we decide when it's appropriate to issue additional tranches or waves of these assets into space. Now, with that said, all of these are generational based as well. So we kind of add an element of collectability to each of these a long time. And so if you're purchasing now, you're buying generation one of every asset. Now, the underlying stats or attributes of any of these assets will be fairly consistent as we release them, but there will only be one opportunity to buy generation one and one opportunity to buy generation two. And so over time, if we are successful, and this is a project or product that lives on for 20 years or 30 years or 1,000 years even, there is a certain degree of history that's associated with being the first and collecting the first. And so while we're issuing more, which leads to some degree to inflation in the economy, the idea is to offset our own issuance inflation against the general user base and then add additional incentives to owning a certain generation of these assets.
And what do you think is going to be for a player the most important skills that they need in order to succeed in this game?
That's a great question. I think that being dynamic in any video game and strategic in any video game, and really any game for that matter, whether you're if you're playing checkers or you're playing chess or Go or any game out there, a certain degree of strategy and planning is really beneficial. But I guess probably the most appropriate way to respond, and this is really speculation because we're early in development, but I think that having some form of specialization within the game is going to lead to better results for the individual player. Now, specialization for the player, but identifying how that complements the specializations of the rest of the team. While we're building this so that an individual can actually navigate space and can enjoy their time in the game, I think that the most successful people will form these alliances. They will participate in social activity like guild formation or, clan participation. And, ultimately, the best functioning machine is one that has individual components for which the whole is greater than the sum of the individual components. And so, the synergy. And so, I mean, it is very difficult to say right now what strategy is going to be best or how best to be active in the game. But perhaps most importantly is just understanding the financial mechanics, having some understanding of blockchain, while not critical to long-term success. I think those are all going to be helpful characteristics of a successful player.
It's interesting because even hearing you speak about that, it sounds like a life philosophy of like how to operate in terms of creating a successful business, a successful life. Would you say that's similar to even how you think about your own life as a founder, as well as just a human being?
I'm sure some of my characteristics are influencing at least my response to that question, if not the development of the game. I mean, it's a valid point. So what I don't want to convey is that this is some kind of like utopian place where everybody can succeed. I mean, what we're creating is the opportunity set. It's still up to the individual to succeed in that environment and figure out how best to optimize their time spent there. And there's a lot of variability and a lot of risk that players will have to undertake. And while we're not creating an exact simulation of reality, a lot of elements of society are being simulated there. And so we're trying to kind of replicate that and allow real life strategy to influence the game, and vice versa. You know, you asked earlier in the podcast, like, how does decision making or the mechanics that we're bringing to the game, how does that impact the real world? Well, I mean, the reality is, in my opinion, this is a grand experiment, but on an expedited timeline. So we can introduce concepts, again, around governance, around social interaction, around economics, that if they work in the game and they're superior to how we actively participate in society in real life, there's no reason why that model can't be extracted and replicated in the real world. And so it can have dramatic change on the way that the world functions itself, the way that city-states or governments function in real life, and the way that we even define what it is, what a geographic border actually is. And so it's a powerful tool for experimentation that can lead to drastic real-world changes.
And in this game, can you ever win, or is it infinite levels?
Yeah, it's not. So this is, I love the way you phrase that. It's a little bit different from how it's typically worded, which is, when is the game done? When are we going to be done with the game? Which, in reality, my response is always, this is a product that should never be complete. Because of course we have our vision and we have the components that we're building out that we want to deliver on a specific timeline. But once we get into that decentralization model where anybody can contribute, they are designing whatever the future of Star Atlas becomes. It effectively becomes a public utility of sorts. And through various forms of stakeholder ownership, they're actually able to contribute to the future version of Star Atlas. And this is why I'm describing this not as a product that would live for 10 to 20 years, but legitimately you could create wealth in this game that could be inherited in future generations. Imagine if you owned one of the first parcels of land in Star Atlas that now becomes prime real estate in 30 years or 40 years, and you're either passing it down to your kids or down to your grandkids even, right? And it can it functions very much like how value is created in real life. So if it's done right, and we enable a population of creators and entrepreneurs to participate in this ecosystem, then it can and should live on forever.
And then just on that last point, in terms of enabling creators and entrepreneurs, what do you think needs to be done to bring people who are not yet part of the metaverse, not yet well-versed in crypto, into this sort of space initially? It's
a lot of education, I'll be honest. So in a way, the game is almost the Trojan horse. Again, we can attract an initial audience, and I think gamers do tend to be a little bit more tech oriented, just because you have to. If it's a computer, you either have to build the computer or buy the computer, learn how to set it up and make sure it works, and install games. And games crash, and then you have to reinstall things. And it just requires a little bit more interaction with technology. So that's one component. I mean, consoles may be slightly different, but through this experience, people will start to get exposed to crypto. I think that this movement behind GameFi or blockchain games is going to be one of the largest catalysts to attracting new people into the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Because while I think, there's obviously a lot of people that are interested in crypto, but one of the biggest draws was the ability just to, trade and speculate and make money off of it. Not necessarily, focused on how transformative is the technology or what can we accomplish with this, but rather how to make a dollar outside of the standard ways of making money, which is both good, good and bad. I think it's fantastic that the opportunity for profit has attracted so many people. It's what's made Bitcoin and many other cryptocurrencies succeed, if we can say that, even though it's 10, 12 years in now, but still very early days of adoption of cryptocurrencies. But we will see this massive influx of new users into games. We expose them to crypto through the financial mechanics of blockchain integration. Over time, what this can evolve into is, what I've been kind of terming as a meta-native human. And so if your parents are interacting with the metaverse on the day that you're born, and I've seen this firsthand, not necessarily with the metaverse, but just with friends and associates that are having kids. But the curve on adoption of technology for the younger generations it's almost inherent at this stage. I'm watching my friends, 1 or 2 year old that can't even talk yet, but knows how to navigate through an iPad, pick out the application that they want to engage in, and start playing a game. Right before language is even possible. I'm just thinking future generations where the metaverse was available from day one. And if your formative years are spent watching and observing your parents engage in this type of activity and you're engaged in it early enough, then that will just start to perpetuate itself and it will become an extension of physical reality.
I mean, if you had to predict, how far out do you see that happening?
Well, I wouldn't say. I think generational meta-native could happen within a single generation, actually. Absolutely possible. I think what we're doing, is going to take a strong foothold within 5 to 6 years. I think we'll really see the game development model transform largely into this because it's clearly superior in terms of value exchange for all of the stakeholders, including the gamers. If the proposition was continue playing games in the traditional format where it's kind of pay to play, and again, rent-based almost, versus ownership and income generating, I think most people would opt for income generating and ownership, especially if it's fun. And so as we see more and more developers move into that model, that just means that this model as a whole gets propagated to a wider audience. And that will lead to further development and integration of the metaverse, which is really cool. There doesn't have to be a single metaverse. And in fact, I think what's most likely to happen is interoperability across multiple metaverses, and a multiverse model of digital economies, if you will. And those almost create their own geographic borders, and foreign exchange and different tokens and different utilities of each. But what's really cool about it is infinite and frictionless travel between those experiences because it's all digital. So with that said, I think 5 to 6 years, we're going to see a major movement into this economic model for game development. And then, we'll start to see it really come into its own within 15 years, maybe 20 years. So within a generation or two, we could see the real metaverse in existence.
Cool. And what are you most excited about in terms of milestones for Star Atlas in the upcoming year?
Well, we do have a long road ahead, but over the course of the remainder of the year, we're really focused on this mini game experience, which is in browser, where we're delivering these ship missions and land development and orbital space station crafting gameplay loops. We've had a really, really explosive year. It's been quite the journey for us. Even internally, I think we're just all a little bit shocked about where we are today in such a short period of time, and that's consistent across revenue that we've generated, about the way that people are excited about this and the community that we've been able to form along the way. But probably, most interesting to me is when we start to roll out these features in Unreal Engine, in the 3D game engine client, because that's when it will really start to feel real. The browser experience is almost an appetizer. right? And the 3D experience is the main course and the dessert and the champagne that comes along with it. So that's super exciting to me, but I have to give a ton of credit to my team, extremely talented group of people across all departments that are really focused on specific areas that allow us to execute in the way that we have. My particular emphasis or kind of activity across the company is really on the economic side. And I'm just kind of curious to see if any of these predictions will come true in terms of, creating this massive employment economy and disrupting traditional commerce and disrupting social experience. And I would also note there that it's almost serendipitous, but it's coming at a time where we're all just, I don't even know if I could say we're emerging from the pandemic, but isolation, right? We all had to stay home and isolated and quarantined, and Zoom meetings started to blow up because even school, every social experience is now in some way digital, at least while we were in the height of the pandemic. And hopefully that doesn't persist. I don't want people to be restricted to their houses, but at least if we can deliver this new form of virtual experience, it should improve that for everyone.
Definitely. I'm excited to see the future of the virtual economy and excited to see how you guys continue moving that forward. Final question for you. What does bringing profit to the people mean to you?
It's truly... It's empowerment for people to escape from, I don't know if I'd say regimes, but systems that are outside of their control. And I think that really what we're doing is trying to create a greater distribution of wealth and value to the people that are actually creating it. And that means everything from this true asset ownership to, true ownership over the cash flows and to the revenue streams and to the production lines. Right. I'm not a socialist, so I don't want that to sound, too far left. But essentially, it allows people to improve their personal situations, whether it be financially or socially or otherwise. And I think it's really cool that we can bring this model and allow people to escape from, just consequences of where they were born. So that to me is probably what profit to the people is about. That's what power to the people is about. And that's why we're introducing these governance models to everything that we're building and allowing people to share in the value that's created as this economy grows.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. And we are so excited and grateful to have you as part of the Republic family.
It was great, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on.
This podcast is provided for educational purposes only by Republic and Republic.co. Nothing discussed should be construed as legal, tax, accounting, or investment advice. The views of the presenters may not be the views of Republic and its affiliates. Always consult with trusted professional advisors before making investments. Private investments are inherently illiquid and may result in a total loss. All rights reserved.